ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello, Cherries fans, and welcome to this Raw Reaction show. The Bees sting the Cherries again, fifth time at the Vitality Stadium in a row. And not only that, I don't think we've ever beaten them in the Premier League, if I remember rightly. But we're going to discuss this weekend's game. And obviously, from the Bournemouth perspective, I'm going to bring in Mr. Beasley.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah, not bad, buddy. Yeah. So obviously, shortly we're going to discuss the Brentford game. We've got Steve from Mr. B TV. What's his channel called again?
The Beehive.
The Beehive. That was it.
Yeah. So
that was it. Yeah, the Beehive.
Good to have Steve on.
Yeah, he'll be joining us shortly. But just before he joins us, let's just have a brief chat about yesterday's Carabao Cup final. Obviously, Mr. Howe winning his first major trophy.
Yes, most definitely. I was absolutely delighted for him. And it was just great to see Eddie Howe just, and Jason, did you see the picture at the end, Matt, where Jason's there and he's the centre of attention again, right in the centre of the Newcastle players. But actually, Newcastle were the better team from start to finish. And yeah, I don't think any Liverpool fans could have any complaints really with the end result. I think they were a little bit lackluster, unfortunately for them. So yeah, but well done, Mr. Eddie Howe, and hopefully will be the other team to win the other domestic cup. Fingers crossed. You never know.
Yes, definitely. Well, our guest is here.
Hello, Steve. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very happy, Craig. Very happy.
Yeah, I thought you would be, mate. I thought you would be.
We rode our luck a bit, though. Let's be honest. You guys, you hit the crossbar, and everything. So, I think you was unlucky. You probably deserved a draw, probably out of that at least. So we were lucky to beat you. We don't see you again, I'm afraid, but.
Well, exactly. Let's get stuck into it, Mac. Take it away.
Yeah, shall we discuss the first half? Probably the best place to start then, guys.
Yes.
Steve, what did you think of the Brentford performance during the first half as a whole?
I think, Matt, that I still don't think we're that great because we're sort of like laying off still. And you give a great team like yourselves time on the ball, you'll do something. You'll always be a danger. And I thought that was like it in this game. And I thought, you had some really good chances as well, shots just wide and stuff. And I thought your players were great again, Semenyo and all that, all brilliant. Zabanye, Cliver, all great players as usual. And I thought we did ride our luck, but I think we sort of had a really good display at the back, even though we did lay off. I'm not happy with that. I will keep saying that. I don't know why we're not pressurising teams. We just don't do it. It's just not good enough, mate. But, it works out this time. I still think, we're a long way off being... If we get Europe, we're not going to be good enough for it. Really, at the moment. I think 9th or 10th, maybe, if we can finish like that,
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Craig, from the Bournemouth perspective, there's a few things we'll talk about a little bit further along the line, but
of course.
Do you feel that we're a little bit losing that intensity that, if you look at the Spurs game, for example, I think we played better against Spurs than we did against Brentford at the weekend. And I think if we'd have put that kind of performance in, we probably would have, no disrespect, probably beaten Brentford. I just thought there was a lack of intensity there on Saturday.
There was, to be honest, and it seems like there is fatigue kicking in. I personally think that the side have played a lot of football. The side have had to go through the injury crisis. I know we spoke, Steve, about Brentford's injury crisis, but
Yeah.
now players are coming back. Iriola has got more choices, and I think it's made it a bit more difficult for him. The intensity levels against Spurs were spot on exactly where we needed them to be. However, against Brentford, it was a fairly decent start. We come out, the blocks quite well, but as time ticked on, I think Brentford become stronger. They were winning the balls in the middle. As we were saying before, Matt, those midfield three, really, really put in a good shift. So yeah, I've got no complaints. I've got no complaints with regards to the result. Unfortunately, I'd love to sit here and say, "Oh, it was the referee and all this, it's that," but Thomas Frank, I think, has got our number, and he's played out to upset us, stall us, and it's done the trick.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, we did say at the beginning of the game, we didn't feel overly positive. There seems to be, I just can't put my finger on why Brentford appear to be our bogey team. I mean, out of 6 attempts in the Premier League, we've never beaten Brentford. So yeah, strange. I just can't put my finger on it myself. But yeah, the first goal in the game obviously went to the Cherries. Obviously not one of our most. A bit of feedback there, guys. Anybody? I'll get a bit of feedback there.
Yeah, there's a little echo. That's the fun of doing things live, isn't it?
I'll try and sort it out, guys. Yeah, I'll get my other mic on or something. I'll sort this out. Okay?
Oh, is it your echo? That's all right. That's all right, Steve. Not a problem at all, mate.
Right, I'll just sort that out, guys. I'll be back soon. Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
worries.
all right, mate. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, sorry. So the Bournemouth goal, Craig. Obviously not our most glamorous goals of seasons this season, but yeah, nice cross from Kirkes, but obviously deflected in off the shoulder of was it Jeanette? Is that the player?
Jeanette.
Yes. But at that time, I thought going 1-0 up, I thought we'd probably go on and kick on and get that second goal, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, not the greatest of goals, was it?
No, but it was created by that man, Mr. Kirkes, again. And Milos has been, he's been absolutely outstanding this season. The run again that he put in, the ball that was aimed into the box. I think Janelt was unlucky. I've got to say that. I think he was unlucky. But I personally... Yeah, I personally think, it was one of those where we have to take these opportunities when they turn up. And yeah, we've had so many bits of bad luck go against us. So we took this as a bit of a positive. But nobody can take anything away from Kirkes and what he did to actually open that goal. But it'd be quite nice to hear Steve's opinions on that and see whether or not he feels that Janelt is at fault for this goal, or if it's just bad luck, really.
Could be a mixture of both. Is that all right, by the way, Mike? I've got this mic in. Is there any echo?
Yeah, that's better, mate. Yeah, that's better.
Cool. I just feel, because he has had previous, to be honest, Janelt, he's done this before and got an own goal. And that was against Spurs, of course. Yeah, that first one. But yeah, you can say it's a little bit unlucky as well, though, because it's not really meant for him anyway, was it? It was just went off of him and somehow went in. But it happens, and we sort of still went on and won it. So I guess in a way, I thought at the time though, oh no, here we go, we might actually lose this.
Yeah,
you probably will actually beat us for a change. So, but then Visser turned up again with another goal, He was pretty good in the game. I don't think he always does enough on the ball. But, I mean, if he gets a goal, I'm not bothered, can't complain. So he's scoring again. And, of course, Norgard, I thought was immense for us in this game. I thought he was superb. Norgard, incredible. My man of the match, actually, Norgard.
Yeah, well, I think the goal for Bournemouth, the own goal there, I think that was unfortunate for the player. I don't think really that was much the player could do about that, to be honest. Unlucky on his behalf. But we started both halves really well, but Brentford grew into the game and made it very difficult for us. That's from Malcolm. Cheers, Malcolm, for your comment. And I would say that's probably right. I think Bournemouth did have good spells and did probably start off each half the better side. But unfortunately, Brentford managed to get into the game. Let's just go through a few of the comments before we move on very quickly. John Bond.
Hello, John. You're right.
Brentford Echo.
Sorry, lads.
Max said their second goal was a stupid bounce back. Felt like our defence was staring into Narnia.
He can't spell Narnia right.
Yeah,
Max. He's got Narnia.
We will discuss the other goal in more detail shortly. Great cross will be at Liverpool next season. Well, I agree with the first bit and do hope the second bit's not true. But hey, that's football. John Bond at Liverpool probs as bench warmer because every player we let go to a top six last few seasons have been bench most games. So I don't know whether I agree with that comment, to be honest.
No, I don't agree with that.
Good goal, awful defence. We'll discuss the second goal shortly. So the equaliser though, Craig, I know you're got some views on this one. I think it's possible. My gut feeling's telling me I think it is a goalkeeping error. I don't think he's very confident when he comes out for it. But is that the commitment he had to make? Was he confident that the defence were going to clear it, or would he been better off, staying and trying to make a save rather than coming out to punch? I mean, there's all sorts of different angles on it. But Craig, what's your view on this one?
It's Kepa's fault all over. Now we know what a good player Johan Wissa is. He's very, very good in the air. He as soon as he headed that ball, you knew where it was going. Now, if Kepa had stayed on his line and left Howson to try and do his job, then he could well have got to that. It was at the height where he could have got over to it and saved it and stopped it going in. Now, there's two question marks for me on this front. The first question mark is, where is the communication between the defence and the goalkeeper? We had this last season, especially against Wolves at home when we had that defeat, where there was Neto just didn't seem to communicate with his defence. The ball coming to the box completely and utterly stuffed it up. The other thing that is a big question mark is, why is he coming to punch that far out? If you come out to punch that ball, you have to win it. You have to, like Malcolm's just said there, Kepa committed himself to go for it as his right, but obviously misjudged it. Yeah, that's very, very true. Now, I've said this before, and I think we've all had our thoughts on this. Is this a Neil Moss thing? Is this, how Neil Moss wants, Kepa to play? We know why Kepa's there, because he plays out from the back. He's very, very good with his feet. Whereas Mark Travers, who would be my selection, hand on heart, my selection, he's a Bournemouth player. He's contracted to Bournemouth. The thing is he's not so good at playing out from the back. Let's be honest, Mark Travers, playing out from the back is quite lousy, really. But personally, for shot stopping, traditional goalkeeping, Mark Travers all day long is the better goalkeeper for me. But I do wonder, is it a case that Neil Moss needs to say, Kepa, you need to stay on your line in certain situations. You have got a better defence than we had back then in front of you, and you need to make sure that it's managed. So when the ball does come in towards that goal, you're there to stop it, because as soon as you come for it and miss it, it's going in one place, especially when you got Johan Wissa, who is a quality player, Steve. I'd love him at Bournemouth. I'd absolutely love him at Bournemouth. I would love Brian and Mbembo here as well. I think the two of them are quality players that offer something a little bit different that you don't traditionally get at many Premier League clubs.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, mate. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think Bramo was that great in this game. I think he was pretty poor, to be honest. Not bad touches, passing. I don't think he was quite at it this time. But yeah, Visser, I think he was putting himself about again, as he usually does, bit of a nuisance, and popped up with that goal. So, he's on a great run. He's got above Tony, of course, on all the goals he scored. So, he's our new top scorer. So, hopefully we can keep him. I hope.
Well, you're not missing Ivan Toney, and the one thing I do want to say with regards to Brian and Mbembo is I see where you're coming from and your point, but I think he was coming up against the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think not Kepa, Kerkez.
Kirkes,
in Kerkez. And Kerkez, without a shadow, would you agree, Matt, was the best player on the pitch for us on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Kerkez is he doesn't have a bad game, does he?
No.
I know we've spoke briefly about was the intensity that's still there. From my perspective, Kerkez's was, he's still getting forward. I would say, was he man of the match in my opinion? I don't think any of the players scored really well this week. In all honesty,
no.
All quite low scores. But yeah, he definitely put his normal shift in. Let's put it that way. Definitely put his normal shift in. But,
I don't think he was man of the match because, of course, I'd give that to a Brentford player all day long. But I think he did kind of snuff out Brian, and I think, I think he did a really, really good job, to be perfectly honest. However, it's not a one-man show. You could have Lionel Messi on a team, but if the other 10 players don't pull their weight or don't perform to the standards you expect, you're going to get beat regardless of how good one player is.
Yeah, definitely. But let's take a look at the second half. Now, the second half, what did really impress me the second half, and from Brentford's perspective, was that midfield three. Now, do forgive me because I won't remember the names. But is it Janot? Janet?
Janot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Oz? What's his name?
Norgard and Damsgaard.
Norgard, Damsgaard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how can I put it? They just really impressed me because they're going forward. Their passing, their movement was fantastic. Now, there was one point where I think it was the number 20, whoever that was, made a run into the box. Is it Janet? Then has made himself available in the box. He's put a cross in, but he didn't get to him. But it did great movement from them two. And those two have attacked, and Norgard has sat back in that sort of holding position. And they were doing that simultaneously and moving. Their movement was fantastic, and some of their through passes as well to the likes of Wissa and Brian was, fantastic. You can see there was a lot of creativity. I know your front three get a lot of praised and deservedly so. But in the second half, they really did impress me. There was one bit when I think it was the one that wears number 20. He's brought the ball down.
We've got Shardy, you got Yanel, you got Damsgaard. If you want about Damsgaard.
Damsgaard, that's it. He's brought the ball down. He's passed it to the other one, the number 6. I can only remember their shirt numbers. He's a wonderful.
Might be Aya or Norgard. No, sorry, Norgard's 6. Norgard's 6.
Yeah. And he's put a wonderful ball up the wing straight to Wisa. I just was really impressed with them in the second half. From our perspective, we did force some saves from your keeper, Tavs and Brooksy. But Craig, it didn't really look like it was going to be our day in the second half, did it?
No, it didn't. And we'll come on to their goal in a second and, what went wrong for that. But, Malcolm said it earlier on, the intensity, was back for the start of that second half. We looked like we'd come out and, Andoni had put a rocket up their arse. And then he just slips back into that. And I think a lot of it is down to fatigue. The players look tired. There's certain players, and we'll come to that as well, no doubt, who just aren't performing at their best. And this, don't get me wrong. We are in a fabulous position. We've got a fabulous squad of players, but the expectation has kind of gone up that level. It's gone up because it's no longer European football. Horribly, it's no longer something that you can just say, well, this is a nice little dream. We'd like to do this. It is a necessity now. If we don't get Europe, we don't get, into at least, we are going to lose players. 100%, and it might still be the case of what stage of European competition we get. So I think there's a bit of fatigue in the squad, and our expectations have just gone up. Looking back, I would say, hey, 6 years ago, this wouldn't have been I wouldn't have been going, oh, this is a really gutting result. It would have been, it's one of those, it happens. But it's because the levels have just accelerated. Be positive, Craig. Yeah, I'm always positive, and I'm Malcolm, but yeah.
Well, we've got to talk about it. Brentford's goal, the winner. For me, looking back at it, I've watched it a couple of times now. It's a good finish from the player. I can't take anything away from the player, and it's a good finish. But I just think there's a lack of concentration there between Semenyo and Zabanier. What did you think of the finish first, Steve?
I think it was a really good finish. I mean, he's not always noted for his great finishing, Norgard. I don't think he always gets a load of goals. I think it's probably his most goals he's got actually this season. I think he's got 4. I think about 3 or 4 this season. So it's probably his best season for goals, to be honest. But I thought he took it really well, and I thought it was a really good throw by Shardy as well, because he's got a great long throw on him. It was really good. So I don't think your defence was great. I think he kind of, I don't know, somebody let it go, didn't they? Bounce over him or something, and it bounced, and then it went to him, and he put it in. But I don't think it's great defensively. But for our side, I thought we finished it well, and Norgard done well, and definitely ran the match for me. Sorry, I think they gave it to Collins in the end. Well, I thought it was great again. He was awesome, but definitely Norgard for me was the best in this game.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Definitely a fair point. Craig, so obviously, I've just mentioned, what I feel that, I think there was a lack of concentration there between the two players, but there was a bit of an incident within the build-up that's been highlighted on the Facebook page. There was a video put on there from Mike Pike, where you actually see there's a bit of a tussle between a Brentford player and two of our players, which possibly could have been a foul, but VAR or the referee didn't pick up on it. What's your opinion on that?
We've seen him given for us. We've seen him given against us. With regards to the tussle, it really does depend on what the referee, or the referee that we do have on the day. I didn't see much of it. I thought that what Sade did was excellent, and Norgard's, goal was, so well taken. I would more focus on our defence, really, and our defensive positioning. We were unusually, because they've been absolutely fantastic all season. Our defence, it's been solid. You wouldn't, Dean Howson, Zabanier, Kirkes, Lewis Cook, you wouldn't expect them to really concede this sort of goal. It was unfamiliar to us, and it's one of those. But I do get the point now, that there is some, tussling in the build up, and I can understand that. There we are. Malcolm, I think I completely agree with every single thing that Malcolm's saying tonight, to be honest. Malcolm, you should come on instead of me. But yeah, nobody wants to see my happy face all the time. So yeah, but no, very, very good point. And yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, really? I've got no excuses for this. I'm not going to turn around like I did against Wolves and, we was beaten by them and have a right old whinge about the referee. Brentford were the deserved winners. Hands up. Can't say much more than that, really.
That's fair enough. So carry on with some reaction. More of a question for you on this one, Steve. Obviously, I've highlighted his performance as part of that midfield, and obviously we've spoken about his good finish. But there's quite a few clubs across Europe monitoring this guy. I believe there's a bit of a contract situation with him.
I think we are trying to extend these contracts. I believe there is a clause there we can extend it for another year, apparently. So I hope we do take up on that. I hope we do. I really do, because I think he's a great player. Our captain, of course, as well. And he's been with us for, well, I don't know how many years it is now, since, I think we're low league, probably Championship or whatever, First Division he's been here. So I think he's amazing, and I hope he stays. It's the same with a lot of our players. A lot of clubs want our players, so it's nothing new for us. But we shouldn't be a selling club anymore, Matt, to be honest. I don't think. Let's keep our best players,
Yeah. Is it a case that it's down to the player to extend the contract on this one? So is he out of contract come the summer, but it's down to him to trigger the extension, or is it down to the club?
Yeah, I think we can trigger that, the club. But as far as I know, he wants to stay. As far as I've heard, he's happy here. So he wants at least another year. But I'm sure his head is a little bit turned, like a lot of our players, when the big clubs come calling, like Liverpool and Arsenal, I suppose, City, some of the bigger clubs. But, he might want to go eventually. But at the moment, he's happy. Same with Bramo, I believe. I'm sure he's happy here with his wife and everything, family. So, and Vissa. So unlucky, guys. You're not having them, by the way. So that's it.
Just before we move on to you, Craig, with just some thoughts on our Cherries player. from Malcolm here. Brentford are a decent side and will probably go to the next level next season as long as they can keep the players. Yeah, I think, again, Malcolm, I think you're spot on there. Now, what I'm going to do is going to bring this one up. Craig, before we discuss this one, Paul and Oz.
Yes. Hello, Paul.
He's saying that he feels Justin Cliver and Semenyo need a break. They're the after effects of our continually playing through the injury crisis. And now, obviously, Sinistera, he went off injured, didn't he? In the second half, looked like a hamstring injury the way he was walking off, but I don't know if that's been confirmed yet or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if that might be Sinistera's season over. I do hope it isn't, because he's a quality player. But with this one, I think I've heard a few fans talk recently about Semenyo and maybe needing a little bit of a break, or was it a case of, the speculation maybe turning his head, or because he doesn't appear to me, I mean, an on-fire Semenyo is unplayable.
Yes.
He's an absolutely fantastic player. Quality player, you're absolutely right, Stephen. So for him getting all the attention that he's been getting is thoroughly deserved. But I just feel maybe the last few games, is it fatigue? Is it, a lot of games that he's been playing? He does put a shift in every game, but I just feel recently like the intensity's possibly dropped with this one. I mean, what's your views on this one?
Well, I did say in the video the other day, that there's been a lot of negativity, especially on everybody's least favorite platform of Twitter X, the place that's run by Elon Musk. Honestly, I think that's all rubbish what people are saying, with regards to, how he's just dropped. He's not given 110%. I honestly think that he is fatigued, and I think he's carrying an injury. I'll be honest, and we've seen this happen before. I wonder if, and I've got no evidence of this, so don't take this as gospel if anybody's watching. I think he might be playing with injections to get him through to this period. Now, if he is playing with injections to get him through to this period and trying to keep him going, he needs a lengthy layoff, and we need to really establish whether or not he is fit enough without that for the Man City game. Because a Semenyo who's absolutely on fire is, like you say, unplayable. He's been fantastic. He's strong, he's quick, he's agile, gets into the box. He's lost all of that, really. It feels like he's a little bit lightweight at the moment, which you wouldn't put, you wouldn't connect him with at all. His pace has gone a little bit. And I think it's injury. What game was it? Was it Brighton where he had that big knock, or was it Wolves? I'm trying to think now, but there was a game where he had quite a knock, didn't he? And I thought, well, and he's never really looked the same since that, and it's kind of coincided with this bad run. It might actually have even been before that. It might have been Saints.
You're right, Craig. He came off holding his left hamstring the game before last.
That's Brighton then. That's Brighton. Oh no, hang on. So Spurs. Is that Brighton, Paul? To confirm, I think it was the Brighton game, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll see if Paul confirms. But yeah, I do get your point there, and you possibly might be right. Like you say, you're not sure for fact. I think personally, I think this international break might have come at a perfect time for Semenyo.
100%.
Gives him some time to rest, and I reckon it's just the amount of games and the amount of effort he's put in, and hopefully for the City game after the international break, he's going to be on absolute tip-top form, because we're going to need him to be for that quarter-final against City. But yeah, I mean, unless you've got, unless you're right there, Craig, with potential injury, that may be the case. But like Malcolm said, Semenyo has dropped in form. Can't find a reason for it, but players do tend to drop a little from time to time, which again is also a good point. But you can't take anything away from him. And I mean, I think maybe Clive during the game looked a little bit not his usual self. Didn't think he could really get in the game that much either. So it's not just a case of Semenyo. I think it might be just a case of, some of these lads that aren't going out for international duty just need a good break.
I've got to be honest. I think this is coming in perfect time, not just for Semenyo. It's coming perfect time for Ryan Christie. I just hope he doesn't get any minutes for Scotland. Being selfish. But I just hope he doesn't get any minutes, because at the end of the day, we need him fit for that Man City game. I think the only player that looks really refreshed, I think Lewis Cook looked a little bit off the edge, on Saturday, just in Clive. Unfortunately, it's that combination. I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not going to, jump on the bandwagon that some of the Twitter trolls get onto, which is that these players are giving up. They're heads being turned. They don't care. Some people have gone even further. That they're overpaid and all that. It's a load of rubbish. These boys have got us into this position, but there is fatigue. And when you're playing at the top of your level, trying to compete to get into the Champions League as AFC Bournemouth, like Brentford would be as well, no disrespect, Steve, you are going to get these injuries. You're going to get fatigue. You're going to get worn out. And hand on heart, I went into this game, kind of fearing the worst. I know I said that we would win, but of course I'm going to say that we're going to win, Steve, more out of hope than, out of any logic. Well, exactly, of course. I'm going to turn around and say that, but this has come at a perfect time. We need to get these lads just rested and fully fit and firing for that Man City game, because, win that, we could well be joining Eddie, with the other domestic trophy. Can you imagine? Eddie Howe wins one trophy, and then, his former club, the club he loves, wins the other. Perfect.
Yeah, it would be a good season. But I think Malcolm also, another great point here from Malcolm. Clive had a tough game, but that was down to how Brentford policed him, as they did with Semenyo, and to take no credit away from Brentford as well. That is a very, very good.
Those midfield three.
Yeah. Like I say, the midfield three, I thought were excellent, and if they play like that every week, then I mean, Brentford have had a bit of a funny season, though, haven't they? I mean, I think they went the first 9 away games. They didn't win at all, did they? I think they lost it all, but they were unbeaten at home, and now it's kind of flipped, hasn't it?
Flip-flop.
At home and winning away, so it's been a bit of a funny season, but you're still picking up enough points, aren't you? So credit to Thomas Frank, obviously, and now you're only sitting 3 points behind us, aren't you? I think you're 11th, and we're 9th now, aren't we? Yes. Let's swiftly move on. Just another bit on Brentford briefly. Some stats on Risa and Brian. Risa has been directly involved in 16 goals, 14 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League this season, his most in a single campaign, which obviously that's what you were saying, Steve, a little bit earlier on, while he is the first Bees player to net 40 goals in the competition. So he's actually scored more goals now than Tony.
Yeah. Brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
So Brian, I always pronounce the name wrong, so we're going to call him Brian.
Bramo.
Has been directly involved in 20 goals, 15 goals, 5 assists in the Premier League this season, becoming just the second Brentford player to reach this milestone in a single campaign after Ivan Toney in 22-23, where he had 24, which was 20 goals and 4 assists. Brian, we can stick with Brian. Has twice as many Premier League goals, with 6 for teammate Risa than any other Brentford player, with each of his last 2 assists for the forward coming against Bournemouth. So, yeah, I mean, that's, it is a kind of, for Brentford now, I mean, I'm
Great
kind of
stat.
thinking,
Isn't it?
are you guys now in a place where you're saying Ivan who?
Yeah. I've been saying that a little while, actually, Matt, because I hated the guy. I hated what he done, apart from getting the goals, which he was great at one stage. But I just hated all his mouth, just do the talking on the pitch and don't slag your own team off that are paying your wages and everything. And, well, paying for you to go and gamble by the looks of it, pretty much, wasn't it? There's gambling on all the other teams and whatever. So, yeah, I'm actually glad he's gone. And it proves we're not a one-man team either, which is good. Or, you've got Victor, Bramo, and so forth. Damsgaard, whatever.
I got to say, Ivan Toney, has really let himself down. Firstly, Brentford stood by him during all that gambling fast that he caused and brought upon himself. As a professional football player, as a professional sportsman, you should know that you shouldn't do that. But also to then put in what was half-assed performances for the football club that's paying you wages. You're paid by Brentford, Tony. You should work your fucking arse off for Brentford. And I'm sorry if I swear there, but his performance at Dean Court, although you beat us towards the end of last season, was absolutely diabolical.
I was happy with that.
Embarrassing.
He was like that. But if he was playing on your side, that was definitely not the kind of performance you'd expect the player to put in. But he did look very lethargic, didn't he?
He did.
Against us last season. But
he's not a professional.
I just thought these stats, they were quite interesting, considering, a lot of people thought Brentford would struggle with, losing Toney, who obviously is a big hitter. It's a lot of goals there. Obviously, for someone who scores as many as he did, to fill that void. But I just thought reading through that was quite interesting, really. But
great stats, sir. Great stats, man. Brilliant.
And we got
sorry, mate.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it just shows, what talent we got. We're not a one-man team. And, there are some good players there. We're not world beaters. We're certainly not world beaters, but we're pretty good. So.
Well, Jamie, you still hopefully we can remain in the top 10. Yeah, I would like to think we can still remain in the top 10. There's a lot of the season still to go. Why not? Why not? Still just got to believe. I know we've had a bit of a blip. Obviously, the defeat against Brighton, Wolves, and obviously now with Brentford. And when you look back at the Spurs game, we should have had 3 points there. And I think a lot of Spurs fans, if they're honest, would probably agree with that as well. I mean, we could have been 2-0 up in the first 5 minutes. So, a little bit of a dip in form, but there's no reason why I don't think we can stay in the top 10. We've had an excellent season. We've been blessed with what we've watched this season. So, why not? And Jamie also asks, who is your player of the season so far? Well, mine is nice and easy. It's Kluivert. He's been one of my favourites since joining. Craig, who would you say?
I would love to say Semenyo, but it's kind of gone a little bit off the boil. I've got to agree with you. I think Kluivert has been probably, no, I'm not going to say Kluivert. I'm going to be different because I'm being awkward. I'm going to say the other player that I think is in the three that compete for it. Although there is so many shouts and so many, you could make an argument for all of them, to be honest, this year. But I'm going to say Milos Kerkez. He's been absolutely outstanding. What he's created in that box, as well as defensive-ness. It's his awareness. So, I think Semenyo was nailed on from me. I absolutely love the man. I think he is having that fatigue. Who knows? He might go back into the lead. That's an interesting one from Ethan. Lewis Cook. And to be fair, although I don't think he had a great match on Saturday, I'll be perfectly honest. Lewis Cook is a very good shout because of how versatile he's been this season as well, playing that right back position. He's deputised there very well. I panicked when we actually let Max Aarons go because I thought, well, crikey, what are we actually doing for a right back? But honestly, Lewis Cook, very, very good shout, actually. And Ryan
Yeah,
Christie as
yeah,
well. Malcolm,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I must say it. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of them. I mean, I've got them both here behind me.
mm,
Cook and Christie. And Cook playing at right back, like you just said, Craig. Doesn't look out of water. Doesn't look like he's a duck out of water at all. Does he? He's sort of slipped in there, and he doesn't seem out of place at all. And like Malcolm has said, Ryan Christie. For me, I mean, I think it's quite hard. I think this is it's really hard to select just one player because everybody
yeah,
collectively has been so good this season for Bournemouth. And yeah, I mean, what a fantastic season. But let's just quickly have a look at what the managers have said. And we'll start with Mr. Iriola first. We are not efficient enough, which I think is a fair quote, really. But Iriola said, "It is frustrating to lose because we did a lot of good things. We probably had the better chances to score, which, in fairness, I think we probably did. But we are not efficient enough. We don't make that difference. Again, efficient in front of goal. Craig, I would agree with that comment. I'm sure you will.
yeah,
We need to create a lot of chances, and other teams like Brentford need fewer chances to score. They were more efficient than us. I think that's a fair point.
yeah,
They punched us. We haven't found the chances well when we are creating them, and that is the main difference. When you have the clearest of chances, but at the end of the day, what matters is the points. We need to improve in the decisive moments because, in the end, that is what makes the difference." And I think I also saw, I think he may have been quoted about saying recently about the top teams, convert their chances, and that's what we've got to start doing if we're going to become, an established top side.
yes.
But yeah, I think that's a fair point from Andoni there, Craig. To be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely agree with him. Maybe because we're right up there for creating chances this season. We're right up there. We've created so many chances this year. So the one thing we've got to think is, how do we become a bit more clinical? How do we make sure that because those fine margins, if we were more clinical at Leicester away, if we were more clinical against Chelsea at home, there, 6 points, 6 points, we would have been better off. You could look at so many games this season, and say, really, we should have done the double over Eddie Howe this season and Newcastle. We had more chances as well before that, Dango goal, which should have stood but didn't stand. We had more chances than Newcastle. There's another 2 points there. So it does all add up. And, yeah, I think if we want to be at this top table long term, Iriola's going to need to find a way of getting the most out of those players to do that.
But for me, it's been hell of a ride, and I'm enjoying it. And long may it continue, as
Definitely.
I always say. It's been a season to remember, and I'm sure at the end of the season, we'll look back on this very fondly, whatever happens. But Paul Dango, yeah, absolutely. He is
Yes.
a cult hero, and like I called him a bit earlier on in the season, our secret weapon when he was coming off the bench and making such an impact as he can do. Just so many players this season have, impressed. But let's have a look at what Mr. Frank had to say. And Thomas Frank said, "I think we played a good first half. I'm very pleased with it in many, many ways. We had 6 big moments where we didn't get a shot off. Those are big moments we need to get more. Second half, Bournemouth started better than us. Yep, totally agree. For the first 5-10 minutes, when I think it was relatively even. Then we go 2-1, and from there, it was not a pretty game, but that happens sometimes. I think it was the first time in a long time where it was an even game and we edged it. So I am really pleased. Keith Andrews, who is the Brentford set piece coach, is doing a very good job. The players are doing very good job, and the coaching around is very good. Set pieces are crucial, and they won us the game today. This is our 50th Premier League win, and there's only 10 clubs who have done this quicker than us. That's crazy. Taking it into consideration our journey, our size, I think that's a day we should be proud of. Of course, we want to look up and aim as high as possible. So, yeah, that's quite a good stat, that Steve, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
if Premier League win, and there's only 10 clubs who have done that quicker than you guys. I'm not sure which clubs that is, to be honest. But looking at aiming as high as possible, is Europe on the cards for you guys as well? Are you in the mix?
To be honest, Matt, I hate the talk of Europe because I still don't think we're ready for it. I mean, even if we get there, we're not really got that big a squad. We haven't got enough great players on the bench. You know, we need to improve. So we're going to have to buy more if we go into Europe. So I'd just rather us finish as high as possible, 9th or 10th or whatever. You know, I'm happy with that, really. Because after last season as well, we was down near the relegation zone, you know. So that was looking worrying for us last season. But, you know, I think if we get high enough, and I agree with what Thomas says, it's brilliant. He's definitely right there. But, you know, yeah, I think as long as we finish fairly well this season, I don't want Europe yet, Matt. Sorry.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Well, just last thing, we're just going to have a look at from a Bournemouth perspective. There's just this comment first there that we're just go through from Jamie. Do you feel the pressure is on the lads to get European football, and do you feel the squad depth needs to be better if we want to challenge for Europe every season? Now, I don't think there's going to be some sort of pressure, I think, Craig, but I don't think it's a masses of pressure, because I think, you know, the football's been so flowing that, you know, the results and the performances have been coming all season. Okay, there's been a bit of a dip recently, but that naturally happens. But I do think there needs to be, you know, more squad depth if we want to challenge for Europe every season. I think that's just quite evident, don't you think?
Yeah, I think the squad depth is limited. You know, when we had those injuries, we were scraping the barrel. We had the youngsters, you know, coming onto the bench, and there's no disrespect. The youngsters should be there, but at the same time, you know, throwing them into a battle against Premier League sides is probably you need to want to ease them in. Which, you know, had we had any more injuries, and it's lucky we didn't, you know, then we would have had to throw on some of these youngsters. But with regards to this pressure side of things, that might be where I disagree a little bit with you here, Matt. Because from a fan perspective, and from fans that have supported the team like me and you for a long, long time, you know, the pressure to get European football is, for me, a case of, well, you know, it's okay. You know, if it happens, it happens. Amazing. Absolutely love to see it. But at the same time, if it doesn't, you know, it's not the end of the world. The problem is at this moment in time is we're in a catch-22. You know, we might think like that. We might think that this was always a pipe dream. But you think of Iriola, he's wanted by, you know, numerous clubs now. You know, there's rumours of Real Madrid. We're never going to stop him from going there, regardless of what competition we're in. There's rumours of Arsenal. There's rumours of Spurs. You know, let's be fair. If we got into a European competition, you know, we could probably stave off Spurs. Might not be able to stave off Arsenal, but we could stave off Spurs. Also, the necessity of getting into Europe is because of the players that we've got and we could potentially lose. So there is a pressure now, unfortunately. There shouldn't be a pressure because of the size of club we are. You know, we are a small club, and it would be miraculous from a fan's perspective, but there's no two bones about it. If we don't get European football, we are going to lose players. We'll probably lose Kirkes anyway, unfortunately. Nobody can stop him going to Liverpool, which I think is probably, that does make sense. He is the best. Yeah, he is the best left back in the division, but yeah, I
So I'm going
personally
to butt in now before we still here at midnight. I
yeah,
totally agree with this comment here from Malcolm. No pressure about Europe. Andoni only looks to the next match. It's the fans and the media that doing all the talking, and it is down to the fans now. If you remember, recently we had Graham Nicholas on cherry picking, who
yes.
said it was down to the fans and the media to, speculate all about Europe and things like that. Whereas, the likes of Andoni, it is a case of no pressure. I'm sure there's pressure. There's always going to be pressure. There's pressure for every footballer, whether you're at the bottom end of the table or the top end of the table, middle of the table. But I don't think it's quite as intense as what you're making out. And I think Malcolm's hit the nail on the head. But I think that might be one where we all where we disagree. But that's football. It's all opinion and things like that, isn't it? So
if this was the 2015-2016 squad that was doing this and we was going for Europe, I'd say there's zero pressure on them. But it's because of the young players we've got. I just personally think, we don't make it, we lose them, and just holding on for hope that we keep them.
Yeah. No, totally agree with hope and keeping them. Definitely, no one wants to lose their best players, and we definitely don't. But Paul from Oz, a lot hangs on the talks in April with Bill and Andoni, RE Europe. Yeah, again, I think you're spot on there. Malcolm, Craig, you sound like a
Matt said that for years, haven't you? Now, Matt, it's just like, oh bloody hell! When you wind him up, who's put a pound in the?
Craig. So Malcolm, totally agree with you again, and agree to disagree. Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? No one's right, no one's wrong, but the majority of us agree. And we don't agree with you, Craig, tonight. But anyway, right. So one last thing, just before we go, is the European dream fading away? Now it sounds negative. I don't think it is personally. I've seen some media saying where some people are saying, the dream is starting to fade. I mean, there's plenty of points still to play for. We've got an international break now. Hopefully some players that may be fatigued will carrying little niggles here and there, gives them some time to rest. We are still in the FA Cup. I mean, that's a route into Europe. So even if we don't progress on through the league and we win the FA Cup, it's a big ask. I know it's a big ask, but the season isn't over. We still have other routes into Europe. There's still points to put on the board for the league. So I just think this is a little blip. There's going to be times where we have little blips, but I still firmly believe we're well in the mix. Craig?
100%. 100%. See, I'm being positive, Malcolm. No, 100%. If you read X over the weekend, off the back of this game, you would think that we were in Ipswich's position or Southampton's position even. It was like there was a big, massive crisis. There's no big, massive crisis. There is fatigue with the players. There's tiredness. There's injuries. I'm sure Semenyo 100% has got an injury. We won't find out. That's up to the people in the changing room and also the medical staff. But this is a blip. We always was going to have a blip during this season. We weren't going to go through it and go, right, okay, we're not going to get beat, before the Wolves game for the rest of the year. That would have been ludicrous. And one defeat does sometimes turn into two, and sometimes turns into, especially when you've gone on a good run, one defeat can kind of knock you off course a little bit. It's Andoni's job now to get them back on course. And look, 9 games remaining, plenty of points to play for, 27 points to play for. In my honest opinion, get 16 of them. We're in Europe of some kind. So yeah, I'm not panicking. And of course, I would, and this might be very, very unpopular, I might, would say, hey, I could not give two hoots about the top Premier League position. If we win the bloody FA Cup, that would be my dream. 2 days out of Wembley, we'll be very, very drunk. We'll be dancing in Trafalgar Square Fountain, and there'll be something else next to that championship trophy. The oldest cup competition in the world. Yeah, let's go and bloody win that.
Well, just before we go, Malcolm has said, Craig, after this live, go and look at the remaining fixtures of Brighton, Fulham, and Villa, to name 3. Yeah, we're going to have a look at that, and I'm sure we're going to do a show at some point about the run-in anyway.
Yeah,
towards the end of the season. So stay tuned for that. But so that kind of wraps it up. Thank you to everybody in the chat who's participated tonight. Much appreciated. Always great to have you guys along with us. Steve, thanks again, mate, for coming on.
No worries, fellas. Anytime,
Yeah,
I'll come on.
Pleasure, mate.
Definitely, it's been a pleasure. I know Craig did a preview with you on your channel.
Thanks for getting Craig for that. Brilliant, man.
Not a problem at all, mate. Anytime.
Yeah, so it's been great to have you on with us, Steve. Craig, as always, as you would normally say. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. It's been different right. Sitting on this side of the screen to that side. And
do you know what? I think you should do this more often because you've done a bloody better job than I have.
I might well do.
I tell you what, that's the next poll. The next poll on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter. Does Matt do a better job in the hot seat than me? If you say yes, Matt's going to be hosting for the rest of the season. If you say no, then it's back down to me. So everybody say yes.
Yeah, it's a case of everybody say.
You've done really well, mate. You've done really well. It's been enjoyable.
Until the next time, everybody. We shall see you soon. Thanks for joining us. And I suppose all that's left to do really is play the advert.
Yep, I shall play that now then.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.